Welcome back, folks. We've made it to Friday. It's September 12th, 2025. Born on this date in 1913, four-time Olympic gold medalist and star of the 36 games, Jesse Owens of Oakville. His family moved to Cleveland, Ohio in his early 20s as part of the Great Migration. Today, we have a Friday conversation with country music songwriter Bobby Tomberlin, who grew up in Luverne. Now, you don't want to miss that. If our state and Southern culture are your thing, and I know they are. First, we have news briefs on an endemic disease being spread by a bug that lives here, a swatting case, and a tapping of the brakes on a garbage truck AI plan. My name's Ike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama. An endemic disease is making its way across parts of the U.S. and notably a swath of southern states, reports AL.com Savannah Trians-Fernandez. Now, everything about this story is a little unsettling. First, the triatamine is known as the kissing bug because it likes to bite people in the face while feeding around the mouth area. Kissing bugs look a little like stink bugs to me, except they're bigger and have a pointed head. They like to leave feces in the bite wounds they cause. I told you all this is unsettling. Their feces often contain a parasite that causes Chagas disease, which for the first time has been declared endemic to the U.S. by the CDC. See, the bug's been here, but the disease is making its rounds. A lot of people may have Chagas disease and not even know it. In some cases, it can be quite serious and lead to chronic issues, fever, malaise, headache, and enlargement of the liver, spleen, and lymph nodes are some of the reported symptoms. Now, it's been found in animals, but no people so far in Alabama. However, there have been human cases in Texas, California, Arizona, Tennessee, Louisiana, Missouri, Arkansas, and of course, Mississippi. The widely reported active threat and related lockdown at Alabama State University was an apparent swatting case, reports AL.com's Mike Kaysen. Swatting is an illegal act of making a false report or threat in order to elicit a response. There were threats and lockdowns at other HBCUs as well on Thursday. And 2 weeks ago, an unfounded threat at Auburn University led to an investigation. These cases are unfortunately part of a nationwide trend of swatting incidents involving schools. And the city of Huntsville has backed out of a plan to use AI cameras on garbage trucks that would have detected overgrown and neglected property, reports AL.com's Scott Turner. A 3-year, $972,200 contract with City Detect had been proposed, but the deal was pulled from the budget for the fiscal year 2026. City Detect's AI software was designed to identify overgrown grass, graffiti, illegal dumping, and neglected property. City officials have said the plan doesn't involve enforcement bots or automatic citations. Its cameras would have been attached to garbage trucks since they travel every street in the city. Now, some residents have been wary of the plan and the information that's being gathered, but don't expect it to go away forever. Mayor Tommy Battle said the contract needs to be tweaked, but that the city will be working on it for the next 6 to 8 months. Hey, let's take a really quick break. We'll be right back with songwriter Bobby Tomberlin. Hey, thanks for staying with us, everybody. Today, we got a special show. Nashville songwriter and author of the new memoir, I've Lived Country Music, Alabama native Bobby Tomberlin is here on the Down in Alabama virtual studio to join us. Bobby, where are you talking to us from?
Well, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee today. This is home for me. I'm originally from Luverne, Alabama, about 45 minutes south of Montgomery, but no, it's Nashville today. And man, thank you so much, Ike, for having me on your podcast.
I appreciate you being here. Now, I wanted to tell you we've actually met before, and it's kind of an interesting story. I was doing some sort of travel story and was in Georgiana.
Oh, no, no, no. Don't say anymore. At the Hank Williams Boyhood Home.
That's right.
I remember Hank Williams's daughter had just been there that day, Holly Williams.
Oh, you do remember the day? Okay, yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
I remember it very well. You and another lady, and you guys had been over to my hometown checking out the fried chicken at the chicken shack.
Yeah, we had, and that won best statewide fried chicken, by the way.
I know the plaque is still on the wall there. And you know what's so funny? Here we are talking a few years later, and I have just finished a songwriting appointment with Hank Williams's grandson, Sam Williams, Hank Jr.'s son. So how funny! We always have this Hank Williams connection when we talk.
It's not a bad one to have in the grand scheme of things, you know.
Well, no, it isn't.
Now, you are, I mean, you know the Hank Williams family history as well as anybody. Um, yeah, probably should have spent more time with you instead of shooting video there and had you explain some more some more about their background. How did the songwriting session with Sam go?
You know what? It was a good day. We're close to finishing a song, and I've known Sam, since he was a little kid. I mean, I remember when his mom was pregnant with him, and Hank Jr. and his wife stopped by Hank's management's office in Nashville, and I remember very well her being pregnant with Sam. So it's so funny all these years later to be sitting down writing with this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Is he working on a new album?
Yeah, he's always working on new music, and he's with MCA Records, a major record company here in Nashville. But as far as the Hank Williams history, being from Laverne, that's not far from Georgiana. So I was raised around a lot of the Hank Williams family, band members, and old friends and radio friends. So that was just part of my childhood.
Yeah, tell me more about growing up in Luferne. Hey, and why you waited so late in life to get into radio.
Yeah, right, age 11. Well, you know what? It was just a beautiful upbringing. I had just this amazing mom and dad. They adopted me actually when I was 4 months old. And when they adopted me, the foster parent in Montgomery told them the only time I cry is when the radio is turned off. So it was like I was consumed with music from the very beginning. And in my book, I write about learning how to walk around a coffee table stereo, where you'd have a little pull-out stereo in the coffee table.
That's
And
right.
my mom and dad had the record Harper Valley PTA by Jeannie C. Riley, and I literally learned to walk to Jeannie C's recording of that song.
That is awesome. People these days don't recognize that radios and televisions were furniture back then. we, my,
That's
my
right.
my folks had a Charlie Pride 8-track that I remember my earliest recollection.
Oh gosh, well, my folks had some Charlie Pride 8 tracks too, and I mean, those are just great memories. And I started having a make-believe radio station in my little bedroom when I was like 5 and 6 years old. I would actually do the weather forecast. And then at age 11, I began being a radio announcer at the hometown 500-watt AM station, WLVN.
What do you do at age 11 at the radio station?
Well, FCC regulations, you're not supposed to be on the air, but I was on the air, but an adult had to be there. So my mom would take me after school, and she would sit there in the lobby. And of course, there would be other employees there too. However, it was a very small radio station. But man, that was just some of the greatest times of my life. And there was a Billboard magazine resource book there, and it had the office numbers to people like Johnny Cash and Hank Williams Jr. and Tammy Wynette. And I was just naive enough and a kid. I called those numbers and said, "Hey, is Johnny Cash available for an interview?" And they were like, "Okay, 2 weeks from tomorrow, we have 10 minutes we'll give you." So
Wow.
it was a different world then.
Yeah.
Nowadays, can you imagine getting an interview with a major artist at this point? I mean, if you're not a big reporting radio station.
Yeah. It's like country music back then and NASCAR, even into the 90s, are both two things that you just could be amazed how accessible the stars are.
Oh, I know. I know.
Well, who were some of the other big shots you were exposed to at the time?
Well, I would go to concerts in Montgomery. That was the closest city. And my dad and mom together would take me to these concerts, and I would walk into a press conference for like the group Alabama holding a cassette recorder and, Hank Jr. of all things. And that was back in the crazy 80s,
Mm.
early 80s. But his manager, Merle Kilgore, was so kind to me and would always give me a backstage pass, and I would interview the band. And oh my gosh, just numerous artists from that time period. Tanya Tucker and they would have these big Hank Williams memorial celebrations, and they still do down in the Georgiana area. And I would just walk up to a bus and say, "Hey, is Vern Gosdin available?" And I had my cassette recorder, and they would let me on the bus. I mean, can you imagine doing that now?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's
It really was. What a time that was.
but then again, an 11-year-old could find a way to buy beer back then too. So it's a different
Yeah, back
world.
then, you're right.
Well,
That's
stop me if I'm jumping ahead too far. But my next question was how you came to work for Mel Tillis from this radio background.
Well, I worked at my hometown radio station, then went to Andalusia to a 100,000 watt station, which is a huge station for Andalusia, but
Mm.
they had that signal. And I met my songwriting mentor there, a guy by the name of Billy Henderson from South Alabama. He had had songs recorded by Crystal Gayle, Jerry Reed, and he was home for a few months in Andalusia taking care of his ailing parents. So he kind of just took me under his wing, and then he went back to Muscle Shoals to continue writing songs. And he came home and he says, "Hey, there's a job opening at the radio station in Muscle Shoals." He says, "There's a new band named Shenandoah. I'm going to be their road manager. We have a 3-bedroom apartment." He said, "The lead singer, Marty Raybon, has just moved out. He got married. So if you want to come, and we won't even be there most of the time, $69 a month." So, man, I went and got an interview with that radio station, and off I went to Muscle Shoals, and that was my college.
Oh yeah.
And so I spent a couple of years there, and that really prepared me for Nashville. And people there, the successful songwriters, they were very open to listening to what I had, and some of them even wrote with me. And then Mel Tillis heard a few of those songs, and he offered me a publishing contract. And it was so funny when he asked, "Do you want a contract?" I'm like, "What kind of contract?" I was so naive, and he signed me, and he paid me $100 a week to write for his publishing company, and I felt like I had hit the jackpot, and in some ways I had, but
Well,
the
yeah.
rent the rent came due, and so I worked at a Kroger grocery store at night.
Now, I know you've heard this 100 times, but I'm going to ask in real life, just regular conversation, how much of a stutter did Mel have?
Oh, he had a stutter, and if he ever got upset, he could really stutter.
You knew you were in trouble then when he
Oh
started.
yeah, luckily I never got in trouble with him, but I did witness a couple of occasions where he got upset, and he did stutter. That was no act.
Okay. Yeah, I've always wondered that because it became such a thing. I mean, for example, I didn't grow up around anyone, any adult that I knew who was close to me who had a stutter, but there was still something so familiar about Mel's it kind of endearing. And he was just folks because of that. And, and,
Absolutely.
and it kind of helped his whole persona, I think.
Well, it did. I mean, it as they call it, brand these days. But I mean, it just really helped him build his brand, and he used it, for his benefit. I mean, he was so naturally funny. He was one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my life, and what a talent! What a great songwriter too.
Mhm. Yeah. Though, and working for him, I guess now we're in the early 90s. Am I right?
You know what? I moved to Nashville in 1990, and I was
Okay.
with Mel's company. I was with his company for 4 years.
Okay. Well, what a crazy time for country music. Neo traditional is moving in, and I mean, there's so many new stars. I'm sure Pam walked through the doors, but that had to be crazy on Music Row with just superstars around all the time.
It really was. And Mel Tillis had a 2-story building on 16th Avenue. And in that building, Billy Joe Royal, I don't know if you remember, down in the
Oh
Boondocks,
yeah.
he had an office there. Scott Hendricks, who he was beginning to produce Brooks and Dunn, Faith Hill, so they were in the building. Then we had an old booking agent, Joe Taylor, who booked Little Jimmy Dickens, Porter Wagner, and then George Jones and his wife Nancy had an office in the building. Of course, it was more Nancy than George, but he was always there. So you would walk into that building and you might see Farron Young, Little Jimmy Dickens. Alan Jackson's accountant was upstairs. So George Jones would be in the lobby saying, "When can we go home? I want to watch Gunsmoke." And then Mel would fly in from Branson. So it was like hillbilly heaven there.
Yeah, it's a little bit like watching TNN all day, but in real life.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And, I knew it was special, but now I look back on it and it was even so much more special than I even realized.
Yeah, country has always had this thing, and I know that show business, a lot of it's show business, but they at least have given this impression of family like that. And I mentioned TNN, the Ralph Emery Show. I mean, it's like they were all related somehow, or at least knew each other from the same hometown. How much of that has changed, or did it ever exist?
It did exist. I can promise you that. I've had a lot of people ask me about that, and I witnessed that firsthand. I mean, I witnessed things like Johnny Paycheck being released from prison and George Jones throwing a party to welcome him back to Nashville. I mean, it was very real. People like Porter Wagner being a friend to a new songwriter.
Yeah.
It was very real. And you know what? I'd love to say it hasn't changed, but it's just a whole different world with the internet. I mean, people don't even go into their offices a lot of time. Like when I say Alan Jackson would come in and sign documents, well, now he can do that, he could do that from his home on his email. So back then, you would see people all the time. I mean, you could just go to Music Row and you were going to see one of the big artists, no doubt.
Tell me about some of the songs that you've had recorded that you're proudest of. And I know one you're going to say for sure, but.
Well, I'll go ahead and say the one I'm sure you're thinking about, One More Day, that was recorded by Diamond Rio.
Yeah.
One more day, one more time, one more sunset, maybe I'd be satisfied.
That's still a special one. I mean, there is not a week that goes by, there's not a show that I do where I don't have someone walk up to me or maybe send me messages on my social media where they've used that song for a memorial or it's helped them heal. And I wrote that with another Alabama native, Stephen Dale Jones from Hamilton, Alabama. And, when we wrote that song, we felt like we had something very special, but we never dreamed that it would become what it did. And I mean, during 9/11, it was used for so many memorials. Dale Earnhardt's death, it was used at his service, and then they did a special version to honor him. And after all these years, it's still played a lot. Actually, we're getting ready to celebrate the 25th anniversary of One More Day in October. Their management reached out to Steve and I, and we're going to do some special video footage. And it's, again, that's just something you never, ever dream about. But I'm so thankful, and I look at it as that song was just a gift from God. I mean, it was such a blessing, much bigger than us. And some of the other songs, I've been I just feel I'm very humble when I say all this. I just feel so blessed. I mean, again, I'm from a two-light town in South Alabama. And just, my dream was honestly, just to get one song recorded, because I had been in radio and I had seen all these songwriters' names underneath the title. And I said, if I could just get one. But of course, when you get one, you want another and another.
That's
and another.
Right. Yeah.
But, some of the ones that really stick out with me are like Kenny Rogers recorded a song of mine, Josh Turner, Faith Hill, Eddie Arnold, one of the first superstars of country music, recorded one. And then Dolly Parton, Bill Anderson. We had a song called Someday It'll All Make Sense, and it was nominated for a Grammy in 2023. Willie Nelson, that's been quite an adventure. He recorded a song of mine on his last record, and now he's just recorded 4 songs for his upcoming project, and also a Christmas song that's going to be released later. So, and
Wow.
I wrote actually 3 of them with Willie and his producer buddy Ken, and that to me is about as good as it gets. I mean, here's the guy who wrote Crazy for Patsy Cline and Hello Walls for Fair and Young, and to just see my name beside him, that's bigger than any award that I could get.
I can't think of an award I'd rather have than that. That's outstanding. Well, fellow songwriters like Willie and Bobby Bear and Dolly, you mentioned. Um, I mean, I know that you're a prolific songwriter at this point, and it's, a lot of it's regular stuff. But man, to know that folks like that who have probably closets full of songs and they pass over those and say, hey, I got to get my hands on this Bobby Tomberlin number. How cool is that?
Again, I mean, I can't even comprehend it sometimes because I still, after being here all this time, I can honestly tell you, I still feel like that kid that just come to town. For some reason, I've never lost that. Thank God. I'm so glad I'm not one of those jaded writers or artists. And I mean, Barbara Streisand and Blake Shelton, they recorded a song that I co-wrote, and then Barbara and Willie recorded the same song. So, I mean, again, I never, ever dreamed that somebody like Barbara Streisand, would record, or even Dolly or Willie, any of these
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Well, I also saw, I believe I'm right on this, John Daly, golfer John
You know
Daly.
what? I didn't even know he had recorded that song, and my publisher sent me. I was getting on a flight, I believe, to L.A., and they send me this text and it says John Daly has released one of your songs. I'm like, John Daly? You mean like the John Daly? And you know what's crazy? I wrote that song with a guy, Jason Campbell, and we wrote that song in like 1997, and I haven't seen Jason since that time. Didn't even know that song was out in the universe, and how he heard that song, I have no idea. But he recorded it, and I've never met John Daly, but I did send him a message on social media, and I just thought I'll randomly send it. It may be him, may not, and it was, and I thanked him for recording the song.
Before people laugh, John Daly wasn't bad on that album, folks.
He really wasn't on our song. It was a song called I Feel a Goodbye Coming On, and he had kind of this Tom Petty rock vocal, and I thought he did a good job. I was like totally surprised.
You've mentioned a couple of the songwriters you've written with. Who are some more of your favorites?
Oh my gosh, that one's a hard one to answer. I
Yeah.
would have to name several, but
Yeah.
Whispered Bill Anderson from the Grand Ole Opry. He's been in this business. He had his first hit in 1959, and he is still on fire. We wrote Yesterday, and he's still like a new kid in town too. He was emailing me last night, excited about this song, and had ideas of who we could pitch it to. God, there's so many
Yeah.
writers. I mean, there's a lot of amazing new artists, new writers that I work with that I'm excited about. But it's always fun to work with those legendary artists, to hear stories like when you write with Bill Anderson, you might hear a story of him riding in a car with Patsy Cline to do a show in Pennsylvania, or when he and Roger Miller were roommates. And it's just, to me, I don't know. I guess that still feeds my love for the music from when I was a kid, just watching these people on TV, and now, I'm sitting in a room working with them. So I still have to kind of pinch myself sometimes.
Yeah, and somebody like Bill, he nearly spans back to Hank. I mean,
I know.
he's seen so much.
He really, really has. And he's had songs recorded by everyone from James Brown, Aretha Franklin, to Lefty Frizzell, Bing Crosby, and he's still getting songs. I mean, Brad Paisley, Kenny Chesney, Jamie Johnson just recorded, I think, 5 songs that he wrote with Bill. So,
Gosh.
he's still going strong.
And you've written with Jamie also, haven't you?
You know what? I haven't written with Jamie.
Oh, you haven't?
Kind of wild, us coming from Alabama. And I actually saw him the other day at Jeannie Seeley's memorial. I sang One More Day at the Opry House, and then everybody came out on Will the Circle Be Unbroken, and I stood beside Jamie, and he's always been so kind to me, and we definitely need to get in a room together. Now, he did record a song with a newer artist named Mo Pitney.
Oh
that
yeah.
I co-wrote with Mo called A Music Man, and it was cool to hear Jamie's voice on that song.
Oh yeah, yeah. Y'all should get in a room and I mean, uh, he seems like such an intense guy. I mean, there's not a shallow guy there with Jamie. You know,
Not at all. Not at all.
we did an interview with him a few years ago in a hotel room, and I never knew. I knew he was a real quiet guy. Soft spoken, typically. But we got in a room and started talking country music history like you and I are doing, and yeah, not a shallow guy. Again, that's great. I think
No.
y'all could have another one more day come out of that session.
Oh, well, hey, you know what? I just need to. I mean, I know him, so, and of course his producer's Buddy Cannon, and I write with Buddy a lot, so I need to make that happen because, again, having that Alabama, in our blood, I mean, it would be
Uh,
kind of fun just to see what would happen. So I'm going to take your advice.
Well, you know how Travis Tritt takes a little credit for getting the Eagles back together. When y'all get a big hit, when get a number one out of that, I'm going to take a little credit of it
Well, absolutely. You'll have a plaque too. I'll go ahead and put that on there on the podcast. Put it out there.
Invite me to the number one party. Um,
Exactly.
there's a lyric in one of the songs. I'm trying to I, I'm trying to remember this exactly. I believe it's one of your songs that I've heard you sing that about songwriters and warning young songwriters. It's a fun song. You say by looking in your eyes, you ain't crazy enough. So my question is how much does being crazy help?
Oh, I think it helps for sure. Uh, I'll even admit that. We're all a little crazy. Number one, to just leave home and take a chance on something like this where there's no guarantee whatsoever. And the song you're talking about is you think you want to be a songwriter like me, but you don't. And you know who I wrote that with? I wrote that with a guy named Terry Faust from Slap Out, Alabama.
Slap out.
He takes care of Hank Williams and Audrey Williams's grave for Hank Jr. And he's actually a really good songwriter. And he actually had the song started. And I was stopping by one day at that grave in Montgomery as I went back to Nashville, and there's Terry, and he says, "Man, I got a song idea for you." And I thought, "Oh, not today." And he shared that with me, and I'm like, I would love to work on that. And the next day, I was writing with Bobby Bear. And for our listeners that may not know, Bear had songs like Detroit City and Marie Laveau. And I shared it with Bobby, and man, we finished that song, and I recorded it on my project. And Bobby came in and sang it. And then John Snyder, Bo Duke from the Dukes of
Yeah.
Hazzard, he recorded the song too. So there's some truth in that song.
Well, that's what makes it a country song. We talk about what makes it a country song, but that's a big part of it right there.
Right.
Now, when you write songs, do you stick to a method? I mean, we'll get into the X's and O's a little bit. Do you start off with a lyrical idea or a melody or just a chord progression, and how's that done?
The best ones for me are just when they just totally come out of nowhere. And I may be driving on I-65 back to Alabama to my hometown or being on the road somewhere. I could be in Michigan, just the other week I was in Michigan and I just got inspired and a verse fell out, the lyric and the melody. And then I'll put it on my little iPhone recorder. And then if I don't finish it by myself, I'll have songwriting appointments and I'll just look at my schedule and think, oh, that would be a good one to write with this guy or this girl. And
Oh, yeah.
that's the way I do it.
Yeah, I imagine it's great to bring inspiration to the room instead of, three guys sit down with an empty notebook and say, okay, what can we think of?
Yeah, but it happens, both ways. I mean, I've been in the room and said, let's just pull out of the air and I've ended up with songs that have, been recorded. I mean, that happened with a gospel song called Here Comes Jesus. Mo Pitney and Will Nance and I got together
Mhm.
before the pandemic and we were trying to write a country song for Mo. And then we just started throwing out these lines and then the song, we were like, no, this is really a song. And it was a gospel song.
Huh.
And then it was pitched to Jeff and Sherry Easter, this successful gospel duo. And then we didn't hear anything. And And then just a couple of years ago, they sent us a message and said, "Hey, we've been going back through emails from before the pandemic, and we found this song, and we're going to record it." And then it won Southern Gospel Song of the Year at the Dove Awards last year. So how
Oh, that's
crazy
great.
is? I know. I mean, if they hadn't have gone back in their emails, they would have never heard the song. So,
That's that, inspiration laughing at you a little bit. We're gonna write a country
oh,
hit. You end up with a Dove Award.
I know. I mean, again, can't even believe that.
uh, a lot is made of change in country music, and one thing about country is we always look to tradition in the past. Even in the 40s, country was really nostalgic. But as we hear these changes on the radio sounds way different than it did 15 years ago, certainly 30 years ago. How much of that is different at the songwriting point in the process, or is it more a case of production, music production, and sonic changes over time? If that question makes sense.
No, that's a great question, and a lot of it has to do with sonic and production, and and it has. I mean, it is. You're right. It doesn't sound anything like it did when you listen to the radio 15 years ago. But I guess we could always say that because
Mm-hmm.
you got to remember there was a time in the 80s when Ronnie Millsap went almost as pop as you could get, or Kenny Rogers and Ann Murray, and where it was really heavy synthesizer. And then next thing you know, Ricky Skaggs comes along, Randy Travis,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go into 1990 with Alan Jackson and Garth Brooks. So it's a cycle. And the only thing that's really different this time, though, is country has been influenced so much from hip hop and rap. So a lot of these new guys grew up listening to that instead of maybe Merle Haggard or even Alan Jackson. So they've brought a lot of that element to the music. But, there's a lot of great country music on the horizon. And then Zach Top, he's very traditional, and he's just been nominated for 3 or 4 awards at the CMAs, just had a big #1. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is like a cycle. And now it's so funny. For a while, a lot of especially the newer writers didn't even want to really get in a country zone, but now they're like, "Oh yeah, we need to write some real country music." And my phone's been ringing off the hook lately. It's
Awesome.
a lot of those guys don't know how to write it really, and so that's when a guy like me, you know,
Yeah.
I know that world. I'm not bragging. I mean, that's just who I am.
Yeah. Demand's got to go up for a country songwriter.
Yeah.
What you mentioned a few newer folks from our part of the world. Ella Langley's starting to make a splash now.
Boy, she's making a big splash. I mean, I don't know Ella, but she's not really that far from Luverne. I mean, it's Hope Hall, right?
Yeah, Hope Hall.
And that's not far from Montgomery or Greenville. So, but I've heard nothing but great things about her. I write with an artist named Jenna LeMaster, and she's friends with her and has known her as they've been like growing up together in the business. And I've heard nothing but great things, and she's so talented. And of course, I'm always rooting for Alabamians.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. If I was, almost knocked something over. This is the point in the program now where if I was Johnny Carson or Ralph Emery, I would hold your book up on the desk. Mine arrived yesterday,
Oh,
so
really?
I can't wait to read it and kick myself for what I didn't ask here and nail you down on. But I know this much about the book so far. Pretty dang good decision having Bill Anderson write the introduction. That was pretty good.
There just wasn't anyone else. I mean, he had to be the one because one of my side jobs before really getting a lot of songs recorded I was his sound engineer. And so he's been a part of my journey for so long and still a part of my journey.
Yeah, his anecdote about hearing One More Day and just knowing this is a songwriter now. He's not our sound guy anymore, that was pretty good. Well, what made you decide to go ahead and write this? I mean, it's from talking to you, it sounds like it had to be written at some point.
Well, I've had people mention to me for years that I should write a book, and I've just kind of like brushed it off. And then when my dad passed away back in January, I was not ready to just plunge right back into the whole, Music Row writing. I didn't have any shows scheduled for a couple of months. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this time and I'm just going to write. And I just went back to the house that built me down in Laverne, Alabama, and I wrote and wrote and wrote. And there were so many pictures there. And I have a lot of pictures in Nashville, but there was a lot of pictures from those early radio days and from the early, when I was in the FFA string band, and it just came together. It was really, really one of the easiest things. I mean, it took a lot of work, but at the same time, it wasn't that difficult putting it together. I just was blessed to remember so many, so many great stories. And, it's not just about me. It's about my journey, definitely going to Nashville and what happened along the way, all the stops and all the, a lot of the ups, the downs. But I wanted it to be inspiring for aspiring songwriters. And then I also wanted to share stories that had never been documented before. Like I have a chapter called Hank's Guitar, where I share a lot of stories that I've been told through the years, including some stories by Charles Carr, who drove Hank Williams on his last ride.
Oh, wow.
And that trip wasn't all doom and gloom. I mean, people have that, this fantasy that he barely could get in the car in Montgomery, but, he had spina bifida. I mean, he was in a lot of pain, but there were some funny things, some cool things that happened on that last trip. And I share about that in the book. And I know that I would have Charles' blessings to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And, and great stories, whether it's about Loretta Lynn or maybe an experience with Dolly Parton or little Jimmy Dickens. I share a lot of that in the book. And also I talk about my adoption and that whole process of finding my birth mother. So there's a lot in there.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into it. I can't wait
Now,
to get
let
into
me mention too, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt, but I also want to mention my girlfriend is also an amazing singer, songwriter, painter, but also helped me tremendously on this book. Her name is Tess Frizzell. Her grandmother was Country Music Hall of Fame member Dottie West, and her uncle was Lefty Frizzell, who's in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom, Shelley West, who had the big hit, You're the Reason God Made Oklahoma, with her uncle, David Frizzell. So crazy country music history. Her dad, Alan, very successful songwriter and artist as well. But she really encouraged me a lot, helped me a lot putting it together. And so that was a big plus too. So I do want to give a shout out to her.
Well, if you don't have enough professional country music connections, there's some powerful personal ones there. For folks listening who aren't into country music and some of that's lost on you, Dottie West did the duets with Kenny Rogers that you've definitely heard, the huge crossover hits, and of course his great solo career. Lefty Frizzell, everybody probably realizes that Merle Haggard is like a country music guidepost. Well, Lefty was Merle's guidepost. So these are not small figures in country music.
No, I mean, Dottie actually was the first female to win a country music Grammy back in 1964. And Merle Haggard never, kept it secretive, his admiration for Lefty. Actually, one of the Malpass brothers, a great country duo that they have a TV show now on RFD. I was with them a couple of nights ago, and they knew Merle very well. And they told me his last years, he would listen to those Lefty Frizzell box sets, sit there and play Lefty songs, and that was right up till the end.
Oh, wow. I can imagine that. That's sort of in real life, sing me back home, as you age.
Yes, that's a great way of describing that.
Well, what else are we forgetting? I don't want to leave anything off. And we were just talking about the book. It's called I've Lived Country Music. It's by Bobby Tomberlin. And it's available. Well, I got it on Amazon. I'm sorry, local bookstore, but it's available in a lot of places, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. And it's been a shock to me, actually, how well it's done so far. I mean, I didn't have any expectations because this is not my world, but it stayed number one on the new country releases on Amazon for 3 weeks, and it's still in the top 3. and it's been in the overall bestseller list, top 20, top 25 now for over 3 weeks. And I've just, it's been amazing. I've been receiving actual letters from people. I didn't even know people sat down and wrote 4-page letters anymore. But this week I've received numerous letters that have come into the office. My publisher, Curb Word, and one guy from Santa Maria, California. I mean, it was unbelievable. Some of the things he shared with me and how he connected with some of my stories. And this guy from Kentucky, the same thing. And it's been really cool to get that feedback from people.
Well, Bobby, I really appreciate you taking the time. I mean, you've been so generous, and get to know you a little better. And if you know, the door's always open. If you ever want to come on again.
Oh man, I would love that. And I just really have enjoyed talking with you. You're the real deal. And that is so funny that we met, of all places, at Hank Williams' boyhood home. And I remember that day so well.
Yeah. You know, you're going to hit it off with somebody if you're both touring Hank Williams' boyhood home. Thanks everybody out there for listening to us. We're going to be back bright and early Monday morning. Until then, y'all come by anytime you want to and see what we're working on the internet at al.com.